Recently on the channel, we talked about the Vincent Bach Stradivarius Model 37 trumpet, basically the gold standard in the industry. In fact, if you want to see that video, you can find it up in the top right corner in the card. But today, we discuss its trombone equivalent. Stay tuned. How's it going, everybody? It's your host, Sam here. Hope you're all doing well on this fine day, and I appreciate you tuning in. Welcome to a new week on Scholastic Brass Month Part 2 Electric Boogaloo, where we are tackling all things trombone. Now remember, the running theme of Scholastic Brass Month 2023 is instruments that you should consider upgrading to after having played for a few years already. For trombonists, that usually means going from a small bore trombone to a large bore tenor trombone. And in that field, there are few that can compete with the Bach 42. In this video, I got the chance to demo two different Bach 42 trombones, a 42B and a 42BO. And in order to do so and look at all the features, I'm going to turn it over to Sam in the practice building. Take it away. Thank you, Studio Sam. Let's take a look at these twin beauties we have here joining us today. In my left hand, I have the Vincent Bach Stradivarius Model 42B, and in my right hand, I have the Vincent Bach Stradivarius Model 42BO. The Bach 42 is a very ubiquitous design of trombone. It is a standard setter in the world of symphonic large bore tenors. That all just means that it takes a large shank mouthpiece, has a bore of 0.547 inches at the slide, and has a 8.5 inch bell flare. That is the case for all Bach 42s, and there are many variations. These are the two most common, but you have the straight 42, which has no trigger whatsoever and looks like something you would use in a jazz band, but make no mistake, it is still a large bore symphonic trombone, just meant to be a little bit more nimble and lighter weight in the hands. Then you have, again, the 42B, the 42BO, you get variants like the 42A, the 42T, the 42G, I think. The list kind of just goes on and on and on. It's just more evidence of the fact that the Bach 42 is, again, a ubiquitous design that can be customized in very many ways, but is very versatile in any case. Now, the only thing separating the 42B from the 42BO, probably the most common variations, is the trigger wrap. This is Bach's standard closed wrap with a circular rotor. You can see the trigger slide has several bends in it. And then this is Bach's standard open wrap design, which is a little bit more straight ahead, has fewer sharp bends besides the 180 here, and a slightly sharper 180 inside the rotor. That is supposed to eliminate turbulence and whatnot, but if you want to hear these two triggers pitted against each other, I recommend you visit the video up in the top right corner in the card. Regardless of which of many Bach 42s you've got in your hands, chances are it's a very versatile and well-balanced instrument. The ergonomics are great. It's reasonably lightweight, even if you've got a big open wrap trigger sagging behind you and weighing you down, still very nice in the hands. The trigger paddle, on these two at least, is really comfortable. The left-hand grip is awesome. The slide is a little bit wider than you might be accustomed to on a small bore tenor trombone, but this is a very good thing because it provides a little bit more clearance between the gooseneck and the human neck, I suppose. Standard Bach 42 trombones will be made of two different metals, which you can see on the horn with the two-tone sort of effect we've got going on. First of all, we've got a yellow brass bell, outer slide tubes, slide crooks and whatnot. That is your industry standard 70% copper, 30% zinc. There is no more common material used in the manufacture of brass instruments. But we also have another fairly common material in the form of nickel-silver accents on these outer slide tubes, some of the bracing on the instrument. That is generally going to be 60% copper, whereas the remaining 40% is going to be some mix of nickel and zinc. And the nickel is obviously where it gets its name. As far as special features of the Bach 42 go, unless you find some crazy variation, generally they're pretty run-of-the-mill. They're just meant to be standard setters, like I said, ubiquitous designs in the orchestral trombone world. So at this point, we will turn it back to Sam in the studio. Take it away. Quick interjection. If you're enjoying this video or others like it on the channel and you want to see bigger and better stuff coming out in the future, please consider checking out patreon.com/SamuelPlaysBrass via the link in the description. You'll find a variety of reward tiers and perks for different amounts of money per month. Any amount really helps in supporting Samuel Plays Brass vision. We've had a couple new patrons join the ranks lately, and I'm so incredibly grateful for their support. If you want to join the club, once again, patreon.com/SamuelPlaysBrass. Let's get back to the video. Now today I want to structure things a little bit differently. Feel free to let me know in the comments whether or not you think this worked for the sake of this video, but since I'm tackling all the trigger and low register stuff in that video up in the card where I'm talking about the 42B versus the BO, I want to not really tackle how it plays and then how it sounds and have excerpts interspersed that generally correlate with these topics. Instead, I want to pick out a few excerpts and talk about exactly why I chose them in relation to the Bach 42. For many decades now, the tone of the Vincent Bach Stradivarius Model 42 has commanded professional orchestras across America. Even through legatos and sustains and soft playing, it still maintains a bold and regal tone, although this bold, regal tone can break up if you push it past the edge of fortissimo. I think a good excerpt to test all of these qualities is this one from Wagner's Tannhäuser Overture. Now on sort of the flip side of the coin, in an excerpt like the solo from Mahler's Third Symphony, you'll hear that even while maintaining firm, forceful articulations, the Bach 42 is still a very expressive instrument capable of huge shifts in dynamics and tone. Now, given these sound demos and the qualities we've talked about, I think we can agree the Bach 42 is a winner in all things orchestra, wind ensemble, chamber, solo playing. But that leaves one important facet of many trombonists' careers, and that's jazz. Now, this might be an unnecessary question to some, but it's one that I wanted to explore anyway. And that is, if the Bach 42 is your one and only trombone, as in you don't own a different horn for jazz, can it fit all of these 5 facets, including jazz? Now, in my opinion, there is something irreplaceable about the sound and response and feel of a small bore jazz trombone, and that's why there are so many professional small bore trombones on the market, even though classical players gravitate towards large bores. And while I do believe that, I do think the Bach 42 is capable of a significant amount of bite, particularly with a smaller or shallower mouthpiece, as I'll demonstrate here. Again, it's not to the same extent as an actual smaller bore trombone, there's just something more authentic about that sound, but the Bach 42 can definitely work in a pinch. Now let's keep that smaller mouthpiece in the shank for a second. I think a large bore paired with a smaller mouthpiece has a really unique sound when approached more softly. It's not quite the same soft classical sound as you heard in parts of the Mahler excerpt, it's in fact more like a jazz ballad sound. And you know me, I love a good jazz ballad, so I had to test that out, and in that area I think the 42 did quite well. I think the Bach Bach 42, regardless of what sort of trigger wrap or type of rotor you get it with, is a really excellent upgrade instrument to your first trigger trombone that, moreover, if you want to, you can use for pretty much the rest of your classical career. Whether you're drilling holes through the back wall on Bruckner's 8th or playing the brass chorale in Mahler's 2nd, it's a real chameleon that works pretty much wherever you stick it. I like it a decent bit more, in fact, than the Bach Stradivarius 37 trumpet, because in that video I talked about the importance of being a Bach person, where the 37 has a specific temperament that works for some players and not others, for instance me. But the 42 trombone, I've never heard of disagreeing significantly with anybody. I think it can work really well for just about anybody who picks it up, even if a lot of players do move on to things like Shires or Getz and Customs or BACs or Greenhose or whatever else after a few years. I think that Bach 42 makes a really great stepping stone for just about anybody that, once again, can be used well into a professional's classical career. The one caveat I'll add is that anytime you're thinking about settling down with the Bach 42, it's incredibly important that you try it and test it out and make sure it's up to that same standard that most of them are. I've heard reports of exceptionally good and exceptionally not so good Bach 42s, so do make sure you sit down and test it. With that, I'm going to be giving the Bach 42 a nice, hefty Sam seal of approval. It's not my personal preference for large bore tenor trombones, but it's one of the better ones I've played. My preference is generally for rose brass, or especially fully copper bells. The extra copper helps to sort of soak up some of the high frequencies in the sound and keep the tone from breaking up at louder dynamics, and that is something that I benefit greatly from as someone who tends to get a relatively harsh sound out of the trombone. You might have heard the trombone I've settled down with, hopefully for life. It's a little thing called the Con 88H. And with that, I hope you've enjoyed my review on the Bach 42 trombone. If you want to check out more reviews, they'll be up in the playlist in the top right corner. But remember, Scholastic Brass Month is still going strong, and we've got plenty of reviews coming up right around the corner. Until next time, we'll see you on the flip side. Let's redo that. On the flip side. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you want to support the creation of bigger and better content on the Samuel Plays Brass channel, have your name featured right here, and a whole host of other perks and benefits, then please consider pledging your support at patreon.com/SamuelPlaysBrass. For now, you can find more videos in the end screen cards to my left.